back in the day. There were no coaches. We had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that was intoxicating for me, to try to figure it out and just to learn what my limitations were.
Learn what your body can do, the puzzle, the nutrition, all of it. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Love, Loss, and Hallucinations, where we start with those three themes and just see where the conversation takes us. This week, I'm excited to have as a guest Jimmy Riccitello. I used to watch Jimmy beat me a lot back in the day when we were both pro triathletes. But Jimmy is the XTERRA Off-Road Triathlon, was an XTERRA Off-Road Triathlon world champion. He's the two-time winner of the St. Croix International Triathlon, which was definitely one of the hardest races on the circuit, hardest and hottest back in the day. Two-time member of the U.S. Goodwill team, when it did a 8:53 at the Hawaii Ironman, and has won all sorts of triathlons, all sorts of bike races. He was a force to contend with, and now he's a force to contend with in different ways. But thank you for joining us here today, Jimmy. It's really good to see you. I think the last time we had a meaningful interaction was maybe 2015. So it's great to just see you and catch up and chat a bit.
Yeah, it's an honor, man, and always good to catch up. And I forgot half the things you mentioned, so it's a nice. I'm already, happy to be on.
Excellent.
I think you missed a few things, but we can,
please fill us in. Well, he's also currently the director of rules and officiating for the Ironman. What's their title now?
Ironman Group.
Ironman Group.
Is,
So, all the athletes get mad at him probably on a weekly basis about trying to enforce things and keep them in line.
Yeah, no, it's fun to be one of the most hated people in the sport, and that's just got that going for me too.
That's a shift, I got to say. Certainly,
it is a shift. But hey, parenthood, I think, prepared me well for that.
Well, maybe we can get into that here during this chat. Well, I'm curious. Remind me, when did you stop racing professionally?
2008 officially.
2008
and
officially.
Started in 84.
84.
Yeah.
So that's
with
24
years.
24 years of racing professionally.
Yeah.
Wow.
2004 I slowed down, but I kept my little pro license and jumped in here and there. Yeah, I don't know if I ever officially retired, but just kind of faded away,
Better to. Well, what does the saying go? I guess the saying is it's better to burn out than to fade away, and I guess you faded away.
Yeah, no, but I think Neil switches it up, too, and says I think he even says it's better to fade out than burn away. I think he covers both. But I'd have to go back and listen.
Got to cover both bases. Yeah, right. Well, and the reason I asked that is specifically that's a long period, and you obviously started racing professionally when you were at a younger age. How was that transition, whether you burned out or faded away? How was the transition from this being your life to, not doing it anymore as a profession?
I honestly was a pretty seamless transition for me. I think it's easier because I wasn't. Okay, I had some good results, but I wasn't one of the key players, and I never. It was certainly my life, and everything I have literally came through the sport. Not to over dramatize, but it was never, I don't know. I was never one of the people who felt like it was my entire identity. And so, I just stopped racing as often, but I was coaching triathletes, and that was fulfilling, big time fulfilling. I got the opportunity in 2005 to help out Ironman with primarily overseeing the pros. Um, they had a spat with Triathlon USA or USA Triathlon,
Right. Right.
um, and needed some help and asked because maybe because I complained a lot about rules and officiating, and as did a lot of us. But
And they're like, well, then
uh,
show up and help us.
yes, put your money where your mouth is. They literally, this is an opportunity for
Uh-huh.
you to make a difference. And I did also um, I got the same spiel from USA Try. Hey, we don't write the rules. If you want to change things, here's how you do it. And so I got elected to the USAT board of directors and wasn't able to get much done there, but it gave me a lot of insight into the bureaucracy and the politics of the sport and a better appreciation actually of what needs to happen to affect change. And so this opportunity, initially I was like, are you crazy? I'm not gonna, no. Um, but then yeah, my wife, I think was like, what better way to actually make a difference? This is an opportunity. Let's see where it takes you. And here I am, 20 years later. It's been really cool to actually get, Ironman's been super cool and let me kind of do my thing and talk to
Mm,
pros. And I'm not able to do everything they want, but I think the perspective that you and I had back in the day has served me well, like,
right.
and I'm
How
able
would
to
you
explain
describe that perspective? Like, how did it serve you?
um, well, I saw things through a very narrow lens back in the day, and my own selfish agendas. I wasn't a swimmer like you, but I was a decent swimmer, a good cyclist, horrible runner. And so
That would be
my
like me, horrible runner.
yeah,
Just
yeah, we were very similar skill sets. You were a lot taller than me, but anyway, that's a whole another story. Um, but my thing was drafting. I didn't appreciate. I had a lead, and I didn't appreciate my peers right in
of
front of my
course.
face. Ignoring the rules, and I didn't appreciate the refs. Laissez-faire attitude towards it, and so I complained a lot, and a lot of my peers who were good runners and also good swimmers and cyclists, they're like, everybody's doing it. And my perspective was, I'm the guy you caught a kilometer from the end of the bike ride, and who was I drafting? So it was a selfish agenda. And when I would speak to event directors or USA Tri, for example, or the ITU back then, which is now World Tri, um, I had no idea what needed to happen on their
Mm,
side. I'm just like,
right.
what's the big deal? Just make it 12 meters instead of 7.
Right.
And so digging in, and getting out of my little narrow viewpoint
Mm,
um, has helped, and I'm still evolving that way. I still my first um, my first thought processes are those of me, the former athlete,
hmm.
but I'm
Yeah.
able now to go, okay, if we want to do pro on the aid stations on the bike and run, not to bore you, um, there's a whole lot of operational constraints that are there.
Yeah. That most people
I
probably don't realize. And
Yeah, yeah, and I have a and I'm able to pass that info on to the pros, and I think a lot of them do get it. Um,
mm,
and so I'm more
yeah.
we're like I was back in the day, just refused to understand the difficulties in making every single change that you know
Yeah.
that that they personally want.
Right.
So
Right. That makes
it's
sense.
been cool, and I feel yeah, it's helped me grow as a person a little bit.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it just like, as it always does, right? Like seeing what's behind the door. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
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 duh. That
yeah,
makes sense. Duh.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. No,
um,
exactly.
yeah. Well, I feel like it sounds like it helped like your transition out of being a professional athlete, keeping your toe in the sport through
Yeah.
coaching and, through working with Ironman. And it also sounds like when you were racing that like you didn't get lost in it. Like it was your whole identity, which I feel like is really easy to do when you're an elite athlete.
Mhm.
Um, do you have any insight to how you manage that, or?
Well, I mean, a lot of friends and mentors of mine did struggle,
Mm,
without mentioning any names, did struggle big time, in
hmm.
that transition from, our sport was a really niche, small sport, and we were, the two of us. I mean, we were big fish in a small pond, um, but again, I think at being at the level just a notch below helped a little bit. But
Yeah,
I always loved everything about the sport, the travel, the people, the exercise, and that's not something that for whatever reason I never stopped. I still exercise quite a bit, not as much as
yeah.
I used to. Um, and I
Me
think all
neither.
those things helped. And yeah, and I never I think Tucson as a it's where I've lived since seventh grade was also I never made the move to Boulder or San Diego where it was a
Right.
bit
So
more
maybe people didn't
clicky
know
and
you as just a
yeah,
triathlete.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was just another master swimmer who did triathlons, or just another person on the group rides here, and just another person at the track doing intervals. Um, and, frankly, it was kind of nice to not have to rehash, you know, I, everything. But I wasn't somebody that was bothered by, like when I came back from a race that I was really felt like I had a great race, and people were like, "Oh, what place did you get?" And I'm like, "Seventh," and they're like, "Oh, that sucks," and I was like, actually, I'm really happy with that. But um, I have some friends that would spend the next 2 hours trying to justify to this person who really doesn't. They're only saying that in my opinion because they think you're bummed about it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not because they're disappointed, and I don't know why, but I feel like I um, clued in on that early, so I didn't really. I don't think I had the troubles transitioning, and I think the key was, um, I did it for myself primarily, and not because of what other people thought of me.
Right.
And then I also kept my toe in the water. I with the Ironman thing, coming at it from a different perspective, the coaching, and then you know, sure, 2000, whenever our kids were born, 2000. I should know this too, I think. Shortly after that, it's taken them to t-ball and soccer and
Hmm.
cross country, and
Yeah, that'll keep you grounded.
it does. And those kids don't care if you won the St. Croix triathlon. You're just the guy blowing the whistle, and telling them to go. Or you're just a parent that's there with
Yeah.
other parents, watching their kids play. And so I think all those things helped me personally.
Mm.
Um, I think.
Well, I'm curious with the athletes that you work with, um, you know, do you come across athletes that you're like, oh, like a large part of this person's motivation is they're trying to like prove to someone else that they can do this or that they're this good or that good. And
Yeah.
uh, if that comes up, do you address that with the athlete or just like, oh, they'll figure it out? Um, or do
Uh,
you feel, I guess, do you feel like will it hurt them in the long run if that's what's motivating them?
yeah, I do. And it doesn't matter what their level is, really. Most of the people that I coach now, and I don't coach very many people. In fact, I never really, I've always kept my little group small just so that I could manage it, and that I didn't suck more than I should from giving them the attention that they deserve. But I do, I am one of those people that probably chimes in, maybe more than when I shouldn't. There's sometimes where I
Right.
say something, I'm like, oh, I don't think I should have gone there. But
Hmm.
it is hard, um, when I feel like somebody is, not as internally motivated as they should be, or way too externally motivated.
Hmm.
and I do say something, probably lost a few clients because of it. Certainly at the upper level, it's
Oh,
like,
wow. Yeah.
you know, it sport is hard if you don't really love the process and love the competition side. I mean, you're going to have days, of course, right? But for the most part, and if somebody does something because they're really good at it, um, sometimes it takes them a while to get that passion. And so that's the way I come at it, is like, oh man, I kind of feel like this person, um, how can I trick this person into enjoying the process more? And so that's usually my first tactic before I say something is, how can I make the process more fun and less
Mm.
work, even though, as, um, we were talking earlier, our son's a professional cyclist, and I always tell him, your worst day on the job is pretty darn good compared to a lot of other people. And it is sport at the end of the day. Like,
Right.
he has a job to do, he's getting paid to do it, and there's expectations that come with that. But it's sport, and as long as you're doing your best and you're all in, um, yeah, results are
Yeah.
sort of separate, but they
Right.
do.
So for you, it was very much the joy and the love of like figuring it out and seeing what you could do with your body.
Yeah,
And, at the end of the day, if you felt like you had a good race, it really didn't matter your place.
totally true.
Except maybe
And
financially, if you had some bills to pay, you're like, oh, I need
yeah,
to get a fifth instead of seventh.
yeah. Well, I mean, that part, I think I had some built-in experiences that helped there too. I didn't, number one, I'm not complaining at all, but I lived a pretty simple life. Still do. Um, yeah, I never got overextended, and that was our,
Yeah.
our buddy, Mr. Tinley, who,
I'm just going to interrupt this podcast for a second to clarify that by Tinley, Jimmy means Scott Tinley, two-time Ironman winner, as well as one of the pioneers in the sport of triathlon. Now back to the podcast.
Mr. Tinley, who I'll never forget the first race I did. I was a USTS Phoenix, and I got second, and I think I won. This is 85, $2,200 and a Sony Watchman, those portable TVs.
Sony Watchman.
Yeah, yeah,
Taking us
yeah,
back, man.
yeah. It was like the size of a regular television, but it was a small back then. And he's like, hey, um, always pay cash. Don't get a credit card. Use this money to buy a plane ticket to USTS Portland, and invest in yourself.
Mm. This was his
And
advice to you.
it was his advice to me,
Mm.
not knowing me at all. Um, and yeah, it really resonated with me. I didn't have a lot of, I, I was in my own little world for quite a while. And so having somebody like him that I looked up to,
Mm.
along with a few of the others chime in, I took it seriously,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and it served me well. But, anyways, I think I got
Yeah.
off
Well,
the
it's so
track there.
great to
So
have mentors like that, especially
yeah,
when you don't expect them, especially in sport where you're like, oh, you're also racing against these people trying to beat
yeah,
them, and yet they're,
yeah,
giving you life advice. So,
yeah. And then eventually, like stuff, right? Because he owned the clothing company, and
yeah.
he went to bat for me, unbeknownst to me, to some of the sponsors that he had.
Mm.
Um, and this was probably one of he, he was perceived as a pretty selfish guy, but
Mm.
he gave a lot
Yep.
to me personally. So I think that was just the persona. He didn't want a lot of people bugging him. And I think when you are at the top, you have your own clothing line and you're winning the Ironman in Hawaii a couple times. You know, people want to
People are
use
going to
you.
bug.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I never did that. You know, um, yeah, they asked me to go train with, why don't you come to San Diego and train? And I drove out, and parked my car where the Tuesday run started in Rancho Santa Fe, very upper, upper high level neighborhood. I slept in my car, I had a little hibachi, cooking hot dogs the morning of the Tuesday run, and people showed up. They're like, "Did you sleep here?" I was like, "Yeah, it's private
What's wrong?
property." Yeah. Anyway, yeah,
Well,
it
I
was.
think that's one of the things, I mean, that I loved about the sport back in the day was, and I don't know how it is now. I'm not really involved in any way in triathlons, so maybe you can tell me. But, back then it was that sort of like, even though we were competing against each other, we're like supporting each other however we could, like, traveling together,
Yeah,
road tripping together from race to race. It was kind of like a little traveling carnival in a way. But it was that, I think that like deeper community was one of the things that really, that I loved about it.
man, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, and it's starting to, yeah, it's making me see. I mean, the community what is now, because I'm still in the carnival still exists. For me, the carnies, that's what we call each other. Just setting up cones and putting on these events and week after week, um, and that community it's motivating. You got other people depending on you, and you
Yeah.
like seeing them. They're fun, hardworking people who are passionate about what they do, and that's how we were. And yeah, I think that still exists. It's different from what I
Hmm.
hear. Um, and again, I think any small sport where more people than in our day are fighting for not a whole lot, relatively speaking. Um,
Relatively speaking. Yeah.
yeah, it's still good. Um,
Oh, that's good to
you can,
hear. That's awesome
yeah,
to hear, actually.
yeah.
Um,
I see a lot of people still having fun and still enjoying the process part.
right. Right. Um, I'm curious, and you sort of touched on this already, but what was it that first drew you to triathlons and like made you fall in love with the sport?
Honestly, I mean, I swam in high school. I was an average swimmer, and my bike was my transportation. And
Mm.
um, yeah, I stayed. Our my stepfather was in the military. He got stationed somewhere else. I stayed here to go to college, and my you'll appreciate this, but I was in the College of Architecture initially, and one of the classes I took was a water polo class, and
Really?
the instructor was a guy named yeah, a guy named George Dallum, who actually ended up being the first USA Triathlon national team coach.
Right.
Um, and he became another mentor, and also at the U of A was Paul Huddle,
Hmm.
who was kind of a big guy back then.
Yeah.
And so I would see these guys, and I'm like, what, I was motivated. I was impressed with what they did, and I couldn't even spell run, let alone run. But I thought I can learn that, and I was wrong, but I gave it a shot, and so I just got lucky in school, and met was introduced to triathlons, and a few people that were nationally at a high level, started hanging out with them and tagging along for bike rides. Um,
Hmm.
and then the local bike club guy um, took a kind of took me under his wing and encouraged me to do the group rides, um, and then it just snowballed from there.
Yeah.
But
Did
it but
you
it
like,
was
did you like train for your first race? And after the first race, you're like, oh, I'm all in on this.
yeah. I just as a swimmer, we had swim meets all the time, and yeah, I trained for the Tucson Tri literally, but I had no expectations,
Hmm.
and I ended up doing pretty well, and that was a neat feeling,
Hmm.
and just kept training, and um you know
Kind of
I
didn't
kind
look
of
back.
yeah I just kind of lucked into it, and the sport was really the United States Triathlon Series was a really, I was just fortunate in timing wise
Hmm.
to have this national series, and then we sort of lucked into XTERRA.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah,
And
that was
yeah,
the right place at the right time for us, for sure.
it was,
Yeah.
and so I've had fortunate timing, I think.
Mm.
But again, I think what I liked about swimming, it's a crazy sport, right? And you know this better than me, but you know, you've got to, you're either leading the lane, which is probably what you were, or last in the lane, which is what I was. But you got carrot in front of you, you got somebody pushing you from behind, you got people on either side, and you, even if you're not good, you push yourself a lot more, and I like that individual sort of, I don't know, I enjoyed that aspect of swimming.
Yeah.
And then I found triathlon to be kind of the same. I rode my bike back and forth to school, and I, you know, left late and tried to get to school on time, and um, spent a lot of time by myself, as I'm
Mm.
sure you did back in the day. There were no
Hmm.
coaches. We had to figure it out,
Yeah.
and that was a intoxicating for me, to try to figure it out and just to learn what my limitations
Yeah.
were. To
Learn what your
to
body can do, the puzzle,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
nutrition,
yeah,
all of it. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
talking to you guys and seeing what other people did, and you know,
Yeah.
um, anyway, that part intrigued me, and eventually, I outgrew that, but I never looked at triathlon as a job, and I never felt pressure
Mm.
to perform at a race to pay the rent. I was fortunate enough to get enough dollars to um to not have a real job.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I have some regrets about how I managed, things. I didn't, I wasn't as careful with, I didn't frivolously spend, but I didn't diligently save either.
Ah,
Um,
yeah.
but again, those are all lessons that I can pass on to our son now,
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, whether it's your son or,
and my and
an
my
elite,
athletes. Yeah.
yeah, and an
Yeah.
athlete, you can, another place that you might not expect to be coaching is like, hey, you might want to save a little bit of that for
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. My dad said, you know, that was it. When I asked him, hey, should I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say this publicly, but when I thought about not dropping out of school, dropping out of
uh,
college to go race in Australia in their summer or our winter, and I talked to my dad, and he's like, "Hey, man, you're paying. I'm not giving you money for college. It's on you. It's your call. And hey, life is short, and money, whatever, you can't take it with you." And I remember him, parents split up, and
hmm,
he got remarried, married into a couple of kids, and he called me. I can't remember how old he was, maybe 50, 55.
mhm.
It's like, you remember what I told you, like, money isn't everything, and because that's bullshit, so you better
It's not
say,
everything, but
you
it
better,
fucking helps.
yes, you better start saving. And so, I was like, I hope it's not too late, but,
Hmm.
um, hey, fortunately my wife is, pretty good about that. And
Yeah.
our son is really good, I, he lives in Nice, France, and, I'll do a bike ride with him. We'll stop at the cafe, and, 9 euro bill. And I'm like, you going to get that? And he's like, no. So he's saving, he's
He's
saving a lot.
saving it up.
So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be an amazing and interesting transition, I would imagine, from, being your own top level athlete to having a son who is now at that level, and being able to hopefully pass on some of your wisdom. Whether he receives it or not, I guess, is always another question. But
you know,
um,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah,
So
uh,
many thoughts.
yeah, so many thoughts. Okay, well, we'll move on from that. But
Well,
uh,
it's just, um, he's inquisitive, and
mm,
it is unexpected. I certainly never expected that both of our kids would enjoy sports. We hoped that they would, for their own, the socialization of it, just the general
Right. And your
health
daughter's a bit
aspect.
a competitive, like
She
college rower.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and she's loving it. And but and they do ask questions, but you know, I do get a lot of like today. You know, I drove a little bit with my son. It's super windy here, and he's like, "Oh man, this wind is killing me," you know. And I'm like, "Yeah, I vaguely remember that back in the day." And I'm Dad, you don't understand. And I'm like, I think I do, but
I think you might.
you know, it's um, but he never saw he saw me exercise a lot, but he never, you know, I stopped when he was young, so he didn't.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we were on a call the other day with some people in the sport, and they're like, you know, your dad, he was pretty good athlete back in the day, and so you know, and Matthew's like, whatever, you know, I'm exaggerating, but
Yeah. Well, Matthew, if you ever watch this, I can tell you I got really tired of watching him, your dad, ride by me and never seeing him again until the finish line. So,
well, it, I think I think parents, we all go through, I think the same thing. I remember thinking that my parents didn't know doodly squat about
no, of
anything,
course. Right.
but I'm telling you, you know, 9 times out of 10, a day later, a month later, 5 years later, I was like, damn, you know, that mom was right or dad was
That's
right.
right. Yep.
And,
Yep.
and it's funny. I see in both of our kids, I hope they don't watch this, but I do see, you know, them process a lot of the advice, mostly that Tracy gives them because she's a lot smarter than I am. Um, but they do, even if they poo-poo it, you know,
Hmm.
later you're like, oh, they heard what we said, and
Right.
it makes me smile, and I'm sure it makes Tracy smile, and
Oh,
so yeah, you got to have thick skin, and it's the same in coaching. You know,
right.
something you say you don't feel it's well received, but it's in there.
Yeah.
You know, it's in there, and at some point you draw on it, and I'm still doing that. Like I
Yeah.
said, man, talking to my mom on Mother's Day, and I'm just like, you know, every day, every year, I'm like, you know, I just think back to what I put our parents through, and even now, you know, I would be mortified if I didn't get to regularly communicate with our kids, and it's like,
Yeah.
gosh, I got to call my mom more often than I do, and um, you you know, now I know how important that interaction is,
Right.
but
Well, and I love
I don't
what
know why. Yeah,
yeah, I love what you said about like, you share this with them and maybe it doesn't seem well received in the moment, but it's in there on some level. And, as we are as humans, usually it takes like some sort of similar situation where they're like, oh, that's what he was
yeah,
talking about,
yeah, yeah,
and at least it's there for them to like fall back on when they need it.
yeah. True,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
true.
Well, and just speaking of family, I'm kind of curious if you're racing or you're coaching. Um, or I guess let's stick with racing for this question, but I'm curious, like, did anything about racing help inform, you know, being a better husband? I mean, you've been married 25 years,
31, baby.
31.
31.
Wow.
Yeah, and
So
almost a
you've learned
half.
some things. Yeah. Wow. Congratulations. And yeah, I'm just curious if like during the racing career, like if that, or if just the challenges of doing that, like improved your marriage in some way, or obviously I'm sure there were stresses as we all have, but
Yeah, I think that my wife would say I haven't learned anything. Um, but she hasn't kicked me to the curb yet.
okay. What do you feel you
But
have learned?
yeah, I think again, you know, appreciating the process, and I
Mm,
think you know, I think that you know, I mean, I think I learned that being away from your wife often or your spouse often
mhm.
enhances the relationship. No, um, yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go stay in Europe I might have to stay for a couple months, and my wife's like, oh, that's too bad. Um, but I think I think what I've learned is that um, if you're a strong person and you value your I don't not to be over dramatic your freedoms.
Hmm.
And Tracy, my wife, was always, you know she had an appreciation for the work that I put into the sport, but she knew and I knew that it wasn't a job. And Tracy's an attorney now, and she works her butt off. Um and but I think if you're, we're I remember saying to her one time, like, wow, now I know what it's like to date me, because we're very similar. She's super independent,
Mm.
and I think that if you can learn to be okay with that, this is my own amateur, you know, N of one analysis, but I think if you're okay with, if you don't stress, you
Mm.
know, if there's something that my wife, yeah, you know, she does, if knock on wood, if she ever didn't want to be with me, she would tell me, so I just try to not, to learn more of what makes her, more of what I do that makes her happy,
Yeah.
more of what I do that disappoints her. And she does the same, and I feel like we're still, I mean, that's going to be a work in progress forever. And then you throw kids in the mix,
Wow. Yeah.
and you've got to, I mean, with two, you can kind of go man to man defense or person to person defense, but you're now, um, you, if you're two independent people and all of a sudden, it's not come home, make dinner, watch your show.
Right.
It's like, I want to watch this. And the kids,
Right.
you know, and that can cause stress too. And I don't know how, but we seem to manage that better than some of my friends.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I was always like, it always struck me like, I don't know, recent Ironman broadcasts, but back when they were primetime television things, when there was like NBC showing it and that sort of thing, they'd always have these age groupers that they would extol and like hold up as these amazing people. And they were amazing people for sure, but it'd be like, she's a doctor and she runs a nonprofit and she's training for an Ironman and she's
yeah,
running her age group and she has four
yeah,
kids. And I'm like,
yeah,
something's missing out there. Something is not
yeah,
adding up. And I'm just curious, like, I'm sure you work with athletes, who have families and jobs, and like, do you get into like how they can have, life balance and how important that is, like, well, whether it will improve their racing or just their life in general?
yeah. I mean, I think that's where the expectations come in, and it's like,
Mm.
um, and also why I've kept my little stable small, right? Because I want to get to know a person, and there are clients of mine that have families and jobs, and mostly, it honestly, it is the women who are, I don't know how they manage, how they
Yeah,
juggle all the balls,
I
and
can't
and
imagine.
throwing in the whole, I mean, it's harder being a mom than a dad from my experience.
Mm.
I don't know, maybe a biological thing. I don't know what, I don't know what, it's just harder. Um, but or maybe it's just me. Um, but I think it's like, hey, you can do this, but no, I'm not a coach that's going to tell you you have to train 16 hours a week or 20 hours a week to finish an Ironman. If you tell me, hey, I've got 5 hours a week to train,
Hmm.
I'm not going to say we need to find two more. It's like, okay, how can I, get you from point A to point B on this limited time? And then, being realistic with the expectations, you're with at your age and you're with your athletic experience and the time you have to train, this is going to be an awesome journey, but you're not going 8 hours in Kona, and that's not the way I would present it, Scott, but you know what I
Right.
mean. And
Right. Right.
um and I think, I when you have somebody that buys into that, it's like, oh, yeah, let, helped me get the most out of myself, given my life, my life as I've explained it to you. And it always bothers me when coaches try to the cookie cutter approach and
Mhm.
they won't flex. It's like, hey, my reputation as a coach is on the line here, and you're going to go 8 hours in Kona, and um,
Yeah, it's ego
that
driven
that
instead of client driven.
yeah, yeah, it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, I had no desire to do Ironmans. I had a short attention span, so the XTERRA stuff and that's what appealed to me, and what I dug. But when I watched Kona, and I saw the
Mm.
personal journey, that it was just plain display on the faces, of everybody out there. Uh, and a lot of those people were finishing at 10 at night, midnight,
Yeah,
they're out
yeah,
there all day. And that's what, reminded me that, I'm doing this for the same reason. I just get there a little faster than they do.
right.
And anyway, that's still what drives me. And then just try to impart that to people I work with, like, hey, you can do this on 5 hours a week. I mean, that's close, um, but it can be done. And if that's all they have, that's all they have.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and if
And
they
it
can,
sounds like it's a challenge for you to try and like figure out how to make them uh,
it,
reach their most potential at that say 5 hours a
yeah,
week.
it's an awesome challenge because it's what you and I did back in the day,
Hmm.
right? How could we get the most out of what, we had more time to train, but what can we do, to get the most out of ourselves? And so it's fun. It's a fun puzzle to put together. And, yeah, again, I think that's part of going back to the whole, transition for that a lot of that's what made it easier for me
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Um, the transition of from pro athlete to not a pro
to
athlete.
regular,
Yeah,
regular,
that
regular guy,
yeah that you could then still figure it out, but on a regular level.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, it is still nice every once in a while to, talk to you about the old days or whoever, or have somebody say, I remember this. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I have those memories that I draw on when I'm by myself sometimes too,
yep,
It's not
yeah.
like I
Well, and I'm
replay the St.
wondering.
Croix video every day and but
You wake up, you're like, Tracy, put on St. Croix
yeah.
again. She's like, Jimmy. uh, well, I'm curious, was there a race or an event that comes to mind that you feel like you learned a lot about yourself in? People will say that about finishing an Ironman or that sort of thing. And,
Yeah,
and, and if
it
so, what was it?
um there's two that jump out and they seem so petty.
Hmm.
That I'm and again, I don't know. I've knock on wood, man. I've been lucky in terms of loss. I think I've so far, not had any major major loss in my life. And so when I
Hmm.
think about the most impactful things that have happened to me, certainly from a sporting sense, they seem so ridiculous. But the two biggies were getting disqualified from two two races that I did really well at, Orange County Performing Arts and Hilton Head, and both cost me each race, probably 25 grand, maybe more.
Wow. Wow.
And I, in Orange County, I was leading Greg Welch with a
Uh-huh.
mile to go. They pulled me off the course and
What was that infraction?
unbuckled my chin strap too early,
That's
which
right. I knew there was a chin
I
strap
did.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then in uh, in Hilton Head, it was 4 hours later for crossing the center line. I was disqualified. And, you know, both, I think the impact for me was heavy because um, because I wasn't a person who went to an event to try to win. I just wanted to do as well as I could every single week,
Yeah.
put some money in the bank, to pay for doing it all over again. Right. And, um, but those two races were races where I went to prove something to myself, and if I'm honest, to other people as well, which I didn't
Mm,
do very often. So
mm.
I was out of my comfort zone, and Orange County was a race. It was on TV. First prize was a Mazda Miata plus money. Trip to the Goodwill Games in Russia. Um, and it was just it was a circuit, and it was just something that I really was probably the first race that I went to where I was going to be disappointed if I didn't win. Not
Mm,
that I knew I could, but I wanted to, and I did
right.
everything I could to try to win that event, and then to be, to have a 40-second lead with a mile to go and be pulled off the course, um, for unbuckling my chin strap too early, which, afterwards,
Yeah.
seeing the broadcast and that lots of other people did it, yet I was singled out for it. And without getting
Oof.
into that whole issue, there were, again, I was a person that talked a lot, that didn't have very nice things to say about the refs, and to be perfectly honest, wasn't as
Mm.
mature about it, about my constructive criticism as I could have been. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
What was
like,
the lesson for you?
well, it's funny. I stepped off the course as I was told to do, and we drove home from Mission Viejo. Never talked, just
Mm.
thought. Um, Brand new bike that Tracy drove out to. I was in Malaysia the week before, flew to LA. She brought a new bike there that
Wow.
was the graffiti bike, if you remember, the one that
Yeah.
had all of
Yeah.
the things that our friends had painted on it. Um, Drive home in silence and pull into the house and go right into the carport with the bikes on the roof
Fuck.
and just
Insult to
and it,
injury.
yeah, I just drove in. I look at Tracy, she looked at me, and we just shook our heads, and um but honestly, the thing that helped, Scott, I think, is, I just owned it. It's like, I
Mm.
know I if I was gonna complain about rules and officiating, that I needed to be perfect. I broke the rule. I don't feel like I should have been disqualified for it, but technically that was the penalty.
Yeah.
Um, and just, you know, taking responsibility. And I don't know where I got that life lesson from. I think my dad was a big
Mm.
own your shit,
Yeah.
Um, but that helped a ton. And honestly, it was maybe a week later where I was just fired up to go racing again. And
Just
yeah, I think I
go
won a
back
race in
out and
Vermont the week after. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was good. The one in Hilton Head took longer.
Mm.
Um, but I think when something happens to you once, you're like, whatever. When it happens again, you're like, what am I doing wrong here? What
Mm.
cat did I kick? Or,
What
uh,
ladder did you walk under?
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was some pity there, some self-pity that,
Mm.
um, yeah.
And were you
And
able to own that eventually as well and just
yeah, because
accept?
I crossed the center line.
Yeah.
The thing that bothered me more than anything was that race, for once, a lot of people did get disqualified for. Remember, I think the guy that crossed the line seventh ended up first
Oh wow.
because
Oh yeah.
everybody got disqualified for drafting. Mine was for center line, and
Yeah.
I caught the group. I said things that I shouldn't have said to the refs who were sitting there doing, in my opinion, doing nothing. And then I passed the group, and when I passed the group, I crossed the center line. I didn't get an
Uh-huh.
advantage. It was a straight road, but I did it barely. Spent the rest of the day off the front and got out sprinted by Miles Stewart at the end. But it was the U.S. Pro Champ, so it was the first American. It was the end of the series.
Yeah.
So the Grand Prix, Coke Grand Prix, which was a biggie prize money
That was
wise.
a big
And
one back then. Yeah.
yeah. So the cool thing was, I didn't want to be lumped in with the drafters. It helped at the awards to have Scott Molina, get up and and bring it up,
Yeah.
in the award ceremony. And
Mm.
he didn't have to do that. But that's also probably why I had a little bit more self-pity. Just when I was starting to forget about it, I'm at the awards and he brings it up and I'm like, God dang it. And
You're like, oh
it was
yeah,
a
that
cool
happened.
thing, but it was
Yeah.
yeah.
Like
But
everybody
anyway,
saw it. Yeah.
yeah, and um, so again, when I talk about it, it seems petty, um, but again, I know a lot of people that have had bad things happen to them, and they've
Mhm.
thrown in the towel. Like, why does this happen to me? I feel like most of the time it's because they didn't take any. It's never, you're never blameless, right? When something bad happens to you,
Yep. Yeah. Whether it's
right?
in a race or a relationship
Yeah,
or yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
you gotta own your shit, and
Yeah.
I'm probably still a little jaded by it, and it's like I mean, I was a ref for a while, and maybe without, I've never had deep psychoanalysis or anything, but um, yeah, who knows?
Mm.
I'm sure I'm still a little jaded, but in a good way. It's like
Yeah.
you you come into it, and it's like, okay, now's my chance to let the refs know that hey, nationalism, everybody's just a number on race day, you know,
Yep. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
literally there's no male, there's no female. Sorry, not it's just when you're officiating, everyone's a number, and you treat everyone the same, and you apply the rules the way you've been instructed. You can't, you know, there's no you can't look differently at the superstar than the average Joe.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I'm still a little jaded, but I think that my pet peeves I've been able to sort of pass on. And again, that's what helps me, I think, with the whole identity thing, and not
Hmm.
just keep on moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I just would want to add, like, even when we were racing back in the day, training together, like you always struck me as someone who had just deep integrity. And like, you were, to me,
well, I
I'm
didn't
being fully,
draft.
you didn't draft. I don't know. And, it was just, it wasn't even so much racing. It was just an energy I got, and you would own up to whatever was going on. I mean, you'd also you were hilarious and make great jokes too. But, I mean, that was my impression back in the day.
Well, you know what? Yeah, that means a ton, especially coming from you, Scott. And it's not, it wasn't really a conscious effort, but I do think that just whatever my dad, and he was the more involved person on that side of it. You
Mhm.
know, it was the era, be a man, blah blah blah. Um, but yeah, fair racing was. I'm not perfect by any means, and I've done things that I regretted. But
Yeah.
but when it's come down to it, I've owned it for sure, and
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I've
I,
had
I
to.
feel that's a very important key to it.
It
Um,
is, but yeah, far from perfect. Um,
mhm.
but again, I think that adds a lot, especially when somebody says that, you're like, oh well, there's that time that Scott doesn't know about, and it's hope he
I
doesn't.
only speak from what I know.
Well,
um,
and in a sports specific sense, again, maybe I would have been different if I was a swimmer runner.
mm,
Maybe my pet
mm,
peeve would have been drafting was the scourge and is still the big taboo, in triathlon, and my skill set made me the anti drafter guy, and
right.
again, it's a pretty selfish agenda because I couldn't run well, and
Hmm.
even if I had a 2-minute head start, I got run down a lot. So I just wanted everybody to put out the same amount of effort that I did on the bike. And um, so it feels kind of cheap to,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take I thank you for your words, but um,
Well,
uh,
along that same line, I just want to share, like, as far, you wanting, I mean, I was definitely the same, not wanting to be involved in any drafting races. That was not,
yeah,
not
hey,
my,
Dan,
between wanting
we were
everyone
the
to do it
same.
on their own and wanting to prove it all
Yeah.
be my race. But
Yeah.
I will say in Xterra's, I always thought the bike was absurdly longer than either of the other two. So I was always
Yes.
pushing them to make the swim longer. And of course,
Yeah.
in a selfish, because, that was me. Like I
Yeah.
wanted the
Yeah.
swim to be longer. And of course, they never did. But
No, and I remember that, and I was like, man, you're crazy. Don't listen. Don't listen to
don't listen
Shoemaker,
to, don't listen to that guy.
because he's right,
Yeah.
especially at XTERRA.
Yeah.
But and
Yeah.
yeah, I would have probably agreed with you honestly, even though it would have hurt me a little bit.
Yeah.
But the people who were kicking our butts early on were the mountain bikers, and they couldn't swim.
No.
And so,
Ned, I was worried he might not make it
yeah,
through the swim.
there were a
Honestly,
couple times where, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, he was a sight in the water.
He was it was a sight in the water. Very unique
Yeah,
swim style. Um,
yeah.
well, as we're coming down to the close here, I'm just curious. Looking back over coaching and your career, and maybe it's something you have shared with your son, or another young athlete. Whether it's I'm thinking probably 25 and younger. Like, is there anything that you thought about, and this could be like sort of in a way, a hallucination of like on a mistaken notion you had about being a professional athlete that you might advise people like, oh, that's not really how it is. If anything comes to mind there.
Gosh, I mean, I honestly, nothing major comes to mind other than just kind of piggybacking off of what we've talked about already, which is, you know, I mean, you have to take it seriously if especially if it's your job, right?
Mhm.
If you're a professional and a high level professional. But at the end of the day, you need to find joy. It is hard, and you're in cold weather, you fall off your bike,
Mhm.
there are risks that are significant and real. Um, so
But keep an eye and keep connected to the joy.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I do, I got a hallucination story if we still have a minute.
Oh, we got some time for
Um,
that for sure.
yeah,
Always.
I mean, and I've never really dabbled in psychedelics. Um, it just wasn't something that I was ever keen on, and I'm
Mhm.
still hesitant to. That I certainly, you know, wasn't I certainly did other things. I never drank when that limits things, and you could where my past
Yes.
times. Um, but there was one time on the I, I had visions, and I also
Mhm.
had what I called ESP things,
Really?
like one time one time my wife was when she got out of school, she got a master's in X-Phys. She worked at Candy Ranch. She says to me, without, I knew nothing about the guests that were there. It was all private, high end, celebrity types. Guess who's at Candy Ranch? And I right without pause said Bill Cosby's wife. And she's like, who told you? And I was like, get out. So
That,
that was just one example. Yeah, that was the
that's
only
not even
response I
like
gave.
a celebrity
Yeah,
that you would go to immediately.
right,
Like, that's
right.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool. But I had always told her that I thought I had ESP because of some weird things
Huh.
that happened. And but and there was a time on our group ride, our Saturday group ride, where I was trying to stay ahead of the group and I was killing myself.
Hmm.
Um, and I saw a person on the side of the road
Mm.
that I begged to to join and help me, a little bit,
Mm.
so that I could stay ahead of this group. And they're like, no, and I rode by it. And then I saw them a mile up the road, the same
No
person. And
way.
I kept just literally, in my mind, or literally, I don't even know, asking them, come on, I'm dying. You gotta help me stay ahead of these guys. And I think 3 times I saw this person on the side of the road. And, at the end of the day, I was like asking my friends, did you see what I saw? And they're like, no, I didn't see what
Wow.
you saw. And So anyways, I don't know what that was about. And
Yeah. Well, that just
I
gave me
never,
some chills because
no,
there's certainly, yeah, when you're pushing into a whole different level of exertion and allowing who knows what to like kind of open up within you.
yeah,
Yeah. That's,
yeah. And I, I had that, similar stuff fairly regularly for a while. And then,
hmm,
now I don't think I can go hard enough to
yeah.
release whatever it was, the endorphins or who knows what it was. But there were weird connections, mental connections with different people in my life over the years that I'm sure maybe there's an explanation, but in my mind, it's just like, there is a, we just haven't, we're rarely able to tap into,
Hmm,
um, everything
yeah.
that's there to be accessed. And so, yeah, part of me is curious, about these possibilities that I'm hearing about now. And will I ever explore that?
Hmm.
Trying to see what this is about right now. I'm not interested enough in it. And I feel like I've already had it, but,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
um,
that's, I mean, just the guy on the side of the road, like, do you feel like that was just, I mean, do you have any idea who that might have been or what they showed up
you
for?
know,
Or,
that was the thing. I didn't recognize the person.
mm,
Like, oh, that's Paul.
yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
wasn't, it was just a person, but they were in cycling
Wow.
gear and they were, urging me on.
Uh huh.
And, there were times on that ride where you would catch people that left early and they
Right.
would jump in and help, take a pull or two and then get dropped. And you're like, oh man, I really needed that. Thank you. And so maybe
So it
it
wasn't
was
until
sort
the
of,
second or third time that you saw him, you're like, wait a second, this is
yeah, I
not
was like,
normal.
how is this person, same person getting, I'm like, yeah, it's the
Wow.
same kid, and I sound like a wacko, but,
Yeah. No,
but
not at all. I mean,
that really, yeah,
really,
that really happened.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, not
Well,
that there was a physical person there, but I saw,
you saw
I know what I
someone,
saw.
something.
Yeah.
You saw something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting, just like, because looking back, I have realized like that was something I was wanting to experience through athletics. And apparently I never was able to like create the right environment or push myself hard enough or something, which probably also explains why I was, waiting for the moment when you would ride by me on your bike because I wasn't able to push that hard. But
uh,
yeah, wow, that's incredible.
yeah, it's a weird thing. And yeah, one of these days soon, I'll try to find somebody that can help me figure out what happened,
Mm, yeah,
what brought that on and what it was. And was it the effort of it? Was it just, was it, I don't know. Was it
yeah,
just something in the brain that was separate from how hard I was working? I don't know.
huh,
I,
yeah. Well, I do remember. I feel like I remember Mark Allen talking about seeing a vision of like the island spirits when he
yeah,
was winning one of his Ironmans. So yeah, it's certainly not out of. I
no,
think it's probably more normal than we think.
yeah, you're right. And he was one of the first people that kind of tapped into that. Like
Mm,
he went on these, you know, India, he went into the mountains and
yeah,
fasted and
some
hung out
indigenous wisdom
and
experiences, rituals, that sort of thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
and was there until he had hallucinations. And from what I've read, I haven't
yeah,
actually talked to him personally about it, but he definitely sought out that mental edge in all sorts of ways that we just were like, you're crazy, and and it worked for him. And
yeah. It seemed
yeah,
to work for
he's
him.
yeah.
Well, well, yeah. Hopefully someday I'll have him on here and I'll ask him directly about that situation. But
You that would be a great conversation.
yeah, yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I will pursue that for sure. But anything else you want to share with the young athletes out there in the world?
Nah. Love
Nah.
what you're doing. That's about
Thank you.
that's about it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, where
Hey,
can people find you if they're interested in your coaching or anything
um,
else?
my let's see, what is my website's pretty lame, but I think it's riccitellocoaching.com.
I
Um,
think that
yeah,
is
it's
correct.
various social media sites,
Yeah,
and
the
um,
huge.
the usual. I'm not great at, as most people tell you, to responding to social media messages, but I'm easy. My all my contact stuff is out there. It's not
Okay,
hidden. So,
cool. Well,
yeah,
we'll put links in the show notes and all that jazz. But um, this has been awesome. It's been just really great to reconnect and talk about old days, nowadays, all the good things. So I look forward to more in the future.
yeah. Likewise, man. And I appreciate the opportunity to uh, to talk, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for thanks for that.
yeah. All right. We'll till next time. Get out there, be fit, have joy.
Will do, man.